Hola, buenas tardes, o buenas noches, o buenos días, if you're up really late doing this. Habla, profe. Tu profesor de español, ¿cómo estás? Yo estoy muy bien, gracias. Vamos a ver un video que repasa el subjuntivo. El subjuntivo. Y yo voy a hablar mucho en inglés durante este video, lo siento. Pero yo puedo hacer lo que quiera. Y si quiero hablar inglés, nadie me puede quitar los puntos, porque yo soy el rey de mí. After our one activity on the super site, there were several of you who said you had trouble with the subjunctive part and subjunctive in general, which is very common. Remember, it's good for you to be aware of what you struggle with as far as vocabulary, as far as skills, listening, reading, writing, or grammar, and find ways to improve where you are weak. And this is something that I think many people brought up, and I think it's difficult for a lot of people. So I'm going to make this video to hopefully help a little bit. It may take some more study and practice and individual practice on your own to get good at this. The subjunctive is difficult for us because it's not something we do in English very often. There are a few cases where we would, but it doesn't really exist, so it doesn't translate very well. And so it's difficult for students to understand, and then even when they understand it, to implement it naturally is another difficult step. And there are some of you who do it. Some of you do it very well, and it's impressive how well you do it. But for most of you, it's a struggle, and something that we will continue to work at. There are people who live in Spanish-speaking countries, and well, there are native speakers really who don't use it very well. It's not necessary to pass the AP exam. You can pass the exam without using it, but remember, your goal is not to do the minimum. Your goal is to show off, and if you can use it, that goes a long way in your scores on the free response sections where you're writing emails or talking in conversations or writing essays and so on. So, and it's used a lot, so it's really good to know. So we're going to talk about the subjunctive very quickly, and yeah, it's something we actually started in Spanish 3. You may remember such phrases as quiero que seas mi novio, necesito que me hagas un favor, no creo que tengas un novio o una novia. We saw these phrases, we saw some others, and actually when you were in Spanish 3, we did some worksheets, I think, and we didn't spend extensive time on any grammar, which I think was right. I mean, I still believe that was the best way to do it. But we did do some practice with this. Maybe you remember that, maybe you don't. You probably remember these phrases. And then in Spanish 4, thanks to the curriculum from Kent State, we spent a lot of time looking at, well, not a lot of time, but there were a lot of different subjunctive situations that were part of that curriculum that we spent some time with. And I know some of you weren't in the Spanish 4 class last year, so this would be a good review, but we did see it all in Spanish 3. And if you weren't in Spanish 4 class last year, there are those who were there who still struggle with it, so you're not that far behind. So subjunctive is used when we are expressing desire, hope, doubt, disbelief, basically anything that is subjective, that's not a simple statement or a simple fact. Something I want, something I desire, something I don't believe. And number 2, there's a change of subject. I can express a desire and say, I want to go to Pizza Hut. I don't need subjunctive because there's only one subject, me. I want to go to Pizza Hut. But if I say, I want you to go to Pizza Hut with me, now we have a change of subject. I want you. So there has to be that change of subject. We want him to do something. They doubt that I. That's when subjunctive is used. So I'm going to actually look here at the sheet that I gave you today in class, because it's already there and it's good just for you to kind of see how this works on this paper. Lots of different things on this reference sheet, but I want to look right here. Nope, not yet. I want to look up here. Present subjunctive forms. And I'm not going to talk about past subjunctive today. And we did some of that in Spanish 4 and actually in Spanish 3 a little bit. But for right now, I'm going to focus on present subjunctive and form first. simply, a lot of times when someone asks about subjunctive, I simply say opposite ending. It's the opposite ending. If it's an AR verb, we use es, hemos. When our rules for forming, step 1, we take the present first person singular form of the verb, the yo form. Hablo, como, tengo, apoyo. Step 2, we drop the o. Step 3, we add the opposite ending. Now this is just understanding how we form these. Hopefully you get to a point, or you are at a point, where you don't have to go through all these steps every time, but just so we understand. Now why do we go through all these? Really it's because of verbs like tengo and hago and vengo. That's why we have to remember this first person step, because then we know we do tenga and venga and haga. So anyway, hablar, if we were to do it, we would say hablo. We would drop the o and say habl, and then we would add the opposite ending, hable, hables, hable, hablemos, hablen. Yo, tú, él, usted, nosotros, ustedes, ellos. Comer, er verb. Er or ir verbs are going to, the opposite is going to be an a. Como, drop the o, com, add the opposite ending, coma, comas, coma, comamos, coma. Form. Now there are some that don't follow the rules. There's not a lot. Dar, de, sea we use a lot. That's from ser, to be. So quiero que seas mi novia. I want you to be. Haya is, and actually I should have put this section on this sheet and I didn't, but that's used a lot of present perfect, like I'm glad that you have read the book. Me alegro que hayas leído el libro. Those present perfect things. Vaya from ir, sepa from saber, esté from estar. And this looks like it's not irregular, but the reason it is irregular is because of estoy. We don't really follow that yo form rule because estoy would be the yo form. Triggers. These are telling us something that triggers the use of the subjunctive, lets us know we need to use it. Again, and I put it on this reference sheet, to use the subjunctive, a change of subject must be present. And on your sheet here, and there's different ways. People have different like acronyms and titles for when to use them. I kind of simplified it into 5 here. First one is wish or want, and these are obviously not all of them, but these are examples. Quiero que, I want that you do something or we do something. Ojalá, we did a lot of ojalá, I hope that. Espera que, he or she hopes that. Deseamos, we wish that. So this first verb is not subjunctive, but what would follow that would be. Emotion, me alegro, I'm glad that. Está triste que, it's sad that. Temo que is a way we say I fear that. I could actually say tengo miedo de que, I'm afraid that. Doubt or denial, whoa. Doubt or denial. Dudo que, I doubt that. No cree que, he doesn't believe that. No es cierto que, it's not true that. Now this is interesting because it doesn't seem like maybe there's a change of subject, but we're implying that when I say no es cierto que, that I don't believe that you or he or she. Same thing with these ones here. Es importante que, it's important that. Hace falta que, it's necessary that. They use this phrase a lot in internado. Hace falta que. Advice, recommendations. Recomiendo que, le aconseja que, he or she advises that. So on. And then we have some triggers here that aren't really the same. They're just kind of on their own. Para que, so that. So I might say, yo trabajo para que mis hijos tengan dinero. I work so that my children have money. We follow para que, so that, with subjunctive. Hasta que, we did this a lot, I know, in my class last year, until. Yo estoy aquí hasta que tú salgas. I am here until you leave. Tan pronto como, as soon as. Con tal de que, provided that. Aunque, although, and it's, with subjunctive this would be translated as even though. Aunque no tengas carro, puedes ir a la fiesta. Even though you don't have a car. It's not a statement or a fact. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Antes de que, después de que, a menos que, sin que. The one I forgot to put on here, I should have, was cuando. We did cuando. If it's something that's going to happen in the future, cuando tengas tiempo, cuando termines el examen, when you finish, when you have time. Subjunctive because it hasn't happened yet. Okay, I want to go quickly, and I only have so much time here, so I'm speeding up. To this activity, yes, to this actual activity that was the other day, based on that article. And it gave you 2 blanks. The first blank is not subjunctive. That's what gets confusing sometimes. The first blank is regular. A Guillermo no le gusta. He doesn't like that Daniel salga o sale con Luis. We are expressing some emotion. He doesn't like it, so we're using subjunctive. No le gusta que Daniel salga. Guillermo le aconseja. Aconsejar is a verb, AR verb, so this is not subjunctive. He advises Daniel that he aleje. And this would be really hard if you don't know these verbs. Alejar is an AR verb. Opposite ending now, aleje. So Guillermo advises that Daniel move away. Es posible que Daniel sale con Luis de nuevo. This is really interesting because this could be either one depending on how certain you are as you say it. If it's es posible que, and I really think it's true, I'm going to say sale. If not, I'll say salga. It's one of those things that could be either way, it could be right depending on what you mean, which I know is not helpful because that's confusing. Marta le pide, she asks a Jacinta que no tutee a Daniel. Tutear is the regular verb, tutee is subjunctive. And again, I realize this is tough because these are new words. A Marta no le molesta, regular, it doesn't bother her, que Daniel sale con Luis. There's no real doubt, there's no real emotion. It doesn't bother her. If it said le molesta, then that would change to salga. Marta, regular, prefiere. And by the way, these regular we call indicative, sometimes if you ever hear that word. Marta prefiere que Guillermo se enoje con ella y no con Daniel. Enojar, enojado, you know, it comes from the verb enojar, would be regular. Subjunctive, enoje. Again, new verbs for you, maybe kind of weird, but just I wanted to run through that and show you why those are what they are. Let me go all the way back here. I think we're pretty much done. Yeah, let me just show you some examples that are maybe a little more understandable. Les recomiendo que hagan la tarea hoy. I recommend that you all do the homework today. Subjunctive. Mi madre duda que Enrique rechace la herencia de su padre. Did I say madre? Mi padre. My dad doubts that Enrique rejects the inheritance of his father. Rechazar was that verb. Rechace. Subjunctive. Me alegro que ustedes conozcan a un taxista. I'm glad that you all know a taxi driver. I don't know why, but this is where we got to remember our yo form. Conozco. I know. We dropped that O. We had the opposite ending. Conozcan. Es importante que nos apoyemos uno al otro. It's important that we all support each other. Apoyar, opposite ending. Apoyemos. We all support each other. La tarea. Here's your homework for tomorrow, along with the article that you have to do. You have to do these sentences. It's not really all that long. Here's what I want you to do. On this reference sheet that you have, I want you to write one sentence with each one of these topic areas. One wish sentence, one emotion, one doubt denial, one impersonal, one advice. And then I want you to pick 3 of these, para que, hasta que, aunque, a menos que, tan pronto como, etc. So 3 of those, any 3 that you want to write a sentence, 1 of each of these, so you'll have 8 sentences altogether. And remember, you can be the first subject or somebody else could. So you could say, I doubt that somebody else does something. Or you could say, my parents doubt that I. Or profe doubts that we. So, you know, mix up that first subject a little bit just for good practice. Okay. Wow, we're just about out of time. That's 15 minutes max. I'm sorry, that's not very exciting, but hopefully that helps. Hang on to this video. Watch it again if you need extra. Adiós, hasta mañana.